Today I decided to study the program of the Democratic Socialists of America, which was recently published on their website. The slogan printed at the top of this document didn't tell us that all proletarians must unite, but it was very similar. It said that workers deserve more. And at the end, there was an exclamation mark. I was immediately interested in what exactly the workers deserve, a question that immediately came to my mind. It took roughly the following form. And if you're not a worker, do you deserve more or not? Looking ahead, I want to say that democratic socialists absolutely want to take money from you and me, as much as they can, and then a little more. They also want to give some of that money to those who will vote for them. Personally, this was clear to me from the very beginning, but I understand that there are people who need to read at least halfway through to start feeling the strange presence of a thief in their pocket. Personally, I think that when they wrote the working people, it was a kind of a way of deceiving people. That's something left over from Marxism, which they carefully try to hide, but it sticks out like a plumber's underwear. I suspect that with this word, the working people, they want to create the impression that the robbers will target someone else. Some millionaires and billionaires, whom they don't consider working people, but simply robbers. So these billionaire robbers, these, not the others. And by the principle of rob what has been stolen or rob from the robbers, yes, or say expropriation of the expropriators. As we were told, this was in a very average school in the Soviet Union. That is, well, we won't be robbing a streetcar operator or a firefighter or a school teacher, but someone completely different. This slogan was at the very top, so it was immediately clear that they were for the working people and wanted the workers to get more. Well, and now we need to explain who are the working people. Why do they even deserve anything at all? And, well, at least hint at it. More than what? What exactly did they mean when they said more? You probably thought they'd tell you something, right? Not a chance. No one is going to explain anything to you. Figure it out yourself. At the very least, it won't be the undemocratic socialists of America explaining it, and not in the program they've written. So you need to understand it this way. Certain people whom the socialists call workers, for some reason unknown to us, supposedly deserve more. Maybe they really do deserve more, but no one has explained to us why. More than, well, maybe the citizens of Babylon in the 2nd century BC, or more than the lame dog around the corner, or any other option that comes to your mind. My favorite, Andrew Galambos, often said that when speech is muddled, it only means one thing: muddled thoughts. And I'll put it this way. Very often, on the contrary, they know perfectly well, but they really don't want to say it. So they do everything they can to hide it. They puff themselves up, wave their arms, roll their eyes like, we're going to surprise and scare you so much that you won't even dare to ask. Well, let's not waste any more time on semantic exorcism. And let's decide that if you belong to the category of people whom the Democratic Socialists of America call working people, even though possibly it's quite likely that you haven't worked a single day in your life, but still you have the right to more. And somehow, in some mystical way, you deserve it. And democratic socialism, of course, will do everything in its power to make sure you get that extra if they come to power. And the class, well, just hint at more, yes, but what is more, who gets more, it doesn't matter. The main thing is to get your imagination going, yes, as if they're going to give you so much. We still couldn't figure out who the working people are, but at least let's try to figure out what rights they have. Although why they deserve it is also unclear, because if we don't know who they are, then how do we know whether they deserve it or not? Well, all right, let's go take a look at the document itself. The first section is called A Prosperous Working Class Community. And then some mystical words are added, freedom to prosper. And it kind of echoes the Declaration of Independence of the United States, like it says there that you can pursue happiness as you understand it, as long as you don't interfere with others. But here it says that you have the freedom to prosper. So it's basically the same thing, but not just bluntly, more like right upside the head. It further says that the freedom to prosper means that if democratic socialists come to power,
расширят
they will expand public resources. I've thought about this for a long time and still don't understand it. But let's try to dig into it together. What exactly public resources are isn't very clearly defined. It's something that will probably be taken away from someone, or something that people will be asked to pool together in order to do some good deeds with it. But it is mentioned, by the way, what they will be used for. And they will be used, well, these ones, yes, for recreation, education, and social interaction, which is very good. Recreation is good, education is good, social interaction is just wonderful. I love all three. Even without going into the details and mechanics of how they plan to do it, it looks like they're going to invest quite a lot of money to, like, build more rural clubs, dance floors with accordion players, maybe following the Western trend of accordionists, bars with nice music, and maybe free drinks. Good idea. And also spaces for retirees where they can play dominoes and checkers, like not the checkers you wave around, but the ones that are kind of like chess, sort of. Like we'll build houses all across America. Ordinary houses, community centers. Let them spend a little time in our shoes, and maybe that'll make them a bit smarter. This is the immortal work of Alexander Gadyach Galich, which it seems they've decided to bring to life in the United States of today's America. But in order to build all of this, money is required. And honestly, quite a lot of it. Where can they get it? It's actually quite clear in the Declaration. That is, it's unclear to those who, when reading this proclamation, don't think. As soon as you start, God forbid, to think, you immediately realize that in order to give someone money that the giver himself didn't earn, you have to take it away from someone who did earn it. And here I have an absolute feeling of déjà vu. Because the rich will immediately leave. Very quickly, their enterprises, which used to bring in a lot of money, will stop being profitable. We've been through this 100 times, haven't we? Yes, in a way. To name them one by one, there are 70 countries where this happened like clockwork. Better than American or Russian ones, like Swiss watches. So in order to build and maintain everything we just talked about, they'll start taking money from, no, not from the homeless. That means the homeless lack money. The poor don't have any money. Retirees mostly don't have much money either. So they'll start taking money from, let me say this, from the workers. So it turns out that in order to give money to the workers, we'll take money from the workers. Don't you think that's a little bit remarkable? I'm not entirely sure I like what the Socialist Democrats or whatever, the Democratic Socialists of America have written. Actually, there's also a pretty funny thing going on with the workers. Workers have all sorts of taxes, levies, and charges taken from them, about half of their salary. So, a person works for a year. Often people work very hard like a dog. Some jobs barely allow for a break. And it turns out that out of that year, he worked for 6 months just so that some guy or some lady could use his money to start building community centers. That is, to put it in really simple terms, working people in the United States, in Europe, in Japan, and in a number of other countries are more or less free for half the year and work for themselves, and for the other half of the year they are slaves. Once again, a slave is someone who works hard but doesn't get paid for it. They don't get a single penny, not even one. No one even says thank you. The difference between the galley slaves is that they were fed 3 times a day, but our slaves have to worry about their own food. Another characteristic of a slave is this: you can't refuse to do, in this case to pay, what the authorities demand from you. That is, the slave owners. Before you were beaten with a whip or sticks, but what they do now, in fact, doesn't matter. That is, it doesn't matter whether they beat you with sticks, a whip, or use other methods of persuasion. Now, they don't beat you, they arrest you. Well, first they try to take away your property if you don't pay, then they arrest you. And if you resist, they kill you. Why? Because they have something to kill you with, and they're trying to take it away from you so you can't kill them in return. Honestly, I don't know where they treated slaves more humanely. Some probably prefer to be beaten, others probably prefer to be killed. By the way, slaves often like it. Such an existence. Well, you think about light, about electricity. If there was electricity back then, yeah, about food, about rain, things like that. If something leaks there, then the master sent by the slave owner comes and fixes it. When Moses led the people out of Egypt, do you think everyone went? Not at all. According to tradition, 1/5. Well, in Hebrew, that's Hamish Hamishia. 1/5 of the slaves went with him, the rest stayed behind. They said, guys, come on, we're fine here, right? Here we get food a few times a day. Even on Sundays, they give us sweets. And over there, what are we going to do there? There's nothing there for us. Nothing, right? Then we have to cross the sea. Well, basically wandering in the desert for 40 years. No, we're not going anywhere. Of course, they could have found something there called freedom, right? But as we know, not everyone needs freedom, but only a very small number of people. By the way, I'm actually very surprised that it turned out to be 20% who left, and not 2%, for example. Because freedom is definitely not needed by 20%. We just tagged along, like the Jews, you know. The Jews, just for company, hanged themselves or did something else, or got drunk, for example, right? That's why they went. But really, it's unlikely that more than 2% need freedom. Again, just getting ahead of myself. I want to say that democratic socialists are not planning to create any additional value at all. So where, one might ask, will they get something to build all of this and organize it? This means that they are going to use the resources that already exist. Well, the ones that were created before the socialists came. What is it called? You're right. It's called the free market, capitalism. There's something else too, right? Right. So they are going to use the existing public resources for recreation, education, and social interaction. But there's only one way to get money without creating new value, and this method has been known since ancient times. It's called stealing. And sometimes it's also called theft. But from whom? Who are we going to steal from? Who will we steal from? Let's say we'll steal from the rich, like not from you. That's how we convince you it's not from you. Think about it, we're going to steal from someone else. Why are you resisting, right? Yeah, go ahead and steal from him as much as you want. But in reality, we'll be stealing from everyone who works. Those who create value and those who earn money. And from him too, because no one else has any money, and we'll be stealing. Why create new value when there's plenty of money? It's with people who can't protect themselves. Let's move on. The Declaration of the American Marxists says, introduce paid family leave. Let's agree right away that we won't immediately reject or accept any proposals that are made. Instead, we'll ask one very simple question. Is it necessary in order to carry out this proposal to take something from someone without that person's permission? In other words, does someone have to be forced to do something they don't want to do? So let's ask right away, who will pay for this leave? For example, I'm a small business owner. Yes, I've had small businesses, I've had a big business, but let's say a small business. Let's say there are 6 people working. I need all of them. One friend says, I have family circumstances. I suddenly want to take leave for 3 weeks or maybe a month, and I want to get paid for it, just like it says in this law. Well, Pete Buttigieg, do you remember him? He became Biden's Secretary of Transportation. He went on leave, I think, for 4 months, when he and his partner decided to adopt a child. and they registered it as a birth. And since a child was born, the parents, to spend more time with the child, took family leave, paid leave. In my opinion, it's a wonderful story, especially because the Secretary of Transportation went on leave at the very moment when we in America were hit by a terrible transportation crisis. But actually, it's even good that he wasn't there. If he'd been there, he would have gotten in the way. People would have come to him, asked questions. He'd have sat in meetings and been entitled to a spot. Terrible. Because he had no idea how to handle a crisis, or not even a crisis, just how to manage a serious organization, like the U.S. Department of Transportation, which nobody needs it. But since it exists, it gets in everyone's way, and now it's absolutely impossible to do without it, to exist, because now you can't do anything until they approve it. So, I have 6 people working for me. One goes on vacation, and I need someone to replace him. So I quickly hire another person, and this person also wants to get paid. But the one who went on vacation by law now has to get paid by me. That means now I have to pay 7 salaries instead of 6. Well, they'll tell me, insurance. But I'll pay more for insurance for a year than for these 3 weeks of vacation we're talking about, right? Well, fine, insurance. Still consider it as a 7th salary. So now I'm not paying 6 people, but 7 people. A small business owner has to pay for an employee's family leave. Sounds great. Scroll down a bit. They have written, we need to introduce a 32-hour work week. Well, I mean, again, that's wonderful, great. So instead of 6 days, it's basically 5 8-hour days, right? Actually, 32 hours divided by 8. How much is that? 4 days. That's great. But it looks like in my small business where 6 people worked 40 hours each, plus now I have to pay insurance, which was equal to a 7th salary, and now I also have to hire at least 2 more people and pay them the same amount. So per hour, it turns out to be much more than I used to pay before. Otherwise, I won't be able to keep my business running. Now, let's imagine that my business is a small restaurant, like a fast food place, right? And I used to pay 6 salaries, which meant I could sell burgers for $5 each and could sell 10,000 hamburgers a month. So I had quite a lot of people because it was affordable, tasty, good, clean, and so on. People would come and love my hamburgers. Plus, as you can imagine, there was also soda, fries, and cookies. So basically, yes, I was surviving. But what happens now when I have to pay not 6 salaries, but 9? My expenses have increased significantly, and now I have to raise the price of the hamburger. So let's say instead of 5, I now have to charge $7 just to make ends meet, to get, let's say, the same amount or maybe even a bit less, but still to make some profit for myself, not just a salary. So we're making our buyer, our client, pay $2 more for the same thing they just got for $2 less. And what will happen? It's very simple. Instead of 10,000 hamburgers a month, I'll now be selling, at best, 7,000. And then as a small business owner, I get a brilliant idea. Why not install a self-service checkout or 2? I immediately fire 2 waiters and the assistant manager, keep the 5 employees who are on salary, and keep the price of a hamburger at $5 each. So let's sum it up. I continue to pay 5 salaries. The price of a hamburger remains $5. 10,000 people buy hamburgers in a month, right? I have the same profit as before. Well, everything is the same, but something has changed, right? 3 people lost their jobs. Actually, I suspect I'll fire a couple more people, because self-checkout machines and other technological changes will allow me, by letting go of some of the people who currently work in the restaurant, to extend the hours that were open. I wouldn't have started firing anyone, but if the government introduces such programs, it will force me to take measures to protect my business from the state, because the most important thing is not to protect from the enemy, but to protect from your own people. That's the main task of any businessman. But don't think that Democratic experts are stupid. The next point they write is that I, as a business owner, am obliged to provide my employees with a decent living wage. Got it? And who will decide whether it's worthy or not? I'll answer, they will, because they are democratic socialists. And that immediately reminded me of communism. But we'll talk about that in the next episode. You can go there right now. The icon for the next episode has already appeared on the screen, or you can use the link that's in the description. You can take a break and go there in an hour or tomorrow. But I want to warn you right away, if what you just heard is only the beginning, then the real stuff will be in the second part, in the conclusion. So I highly recommend not waiting too long, just click and go straight to the second video.